guys, welcome to a new episode of the Psychedelic Virgin video diary series. So today I decided I'm actually going to re-record one of my previous video diaries because I kind of had to call myself out and that I was not being completely honest about my experience because, well, I'll tell you why. So I'll back up. So I made a couple of edits to one of the episodes where I mentioned an acquaintance of mine that I thought I was friends with, but it turns out I was her friend, but she wasn't really my friend in that situation. And so basically I'll go into like more detail in the book, but so the last episode that just aired, which hasn't exactly aired yet, it's a little confusing. So the episode like where I go to this little like kind of cabin in the woods, just like a nice like little remote location. And I went with someone that I thought I could trust. No, even that's not true. That I wanted to believe that I could trust. And so I had to make edits to that episode because I was talking about, oh, I'm here like with my new best friend and, we're besties and it's all like, lovely and wonderful and great. But there were some red flags that I was ignoring, even though I noticed them, but I would notice them, I would acknowledge them, but then I'd ignore them. And so what I will say, my feedback to people who, maybe have already had this experience or might, do this experience, is that if you are someone who is wanting to experience this medicine with a friend, that it really should be someone that you can trust. Because if you don't, it definitely changes your experience. And so this was someone that said that they weren't actually going to experience the medicine. They just wanted to be a sitter for me, like just to make sure that I was okay and make sure that I was safe. And so they kind of went back on that. They basically went back on it and said, oh no, I'm going to do it too. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, fine. I guess since we have we both don't have our previous relationships with the medicine. We're kind of on the same page with it a little bit. And I am definitely not going to be someone who advocates taking any kind of medicine without the intention of elevating your consciousness. I'm just not going to. I feel like medicine is oftentimes treated like a drug. And I feel like that is not showing reverence to the medicine. And so this won't be a long one, hopefully. I say that sometimes, but then I end up going on and on and on. But because I don't want to do too many spoiler alerts, I'm going to have to be more succinct in my shares. So, okay, so we went to this little, remote place, and she basically, I was sharing my idea with her because she took an interest in my project. So I had, sat down with her and I said, oh yeah, so I'm gonna write this book and do a podcast called The Psychedelic Virgin, and she and her, one of her children was like, oh my God, that's a great idea. That's so cool. And she goes, I want to do it too. I want to do it too. And so I thought, well, that's kind of cool. I mean, I never thought of like really doing it with someone else. So I just thought that would be a really cool experience. And so I ended up bringing her along on the project. And when I did, and when I did, know, I thought it was going to be a fun experience. I really thought it would be like this really cool, like sisterly kind of experience. And, you know, a little background about me, I don't think I've shared this before, but you know, I'm an only child. I grew up an only child. I have a sister that I've met, you know, once in my life, but in terms of like someone that I actually grew up with who knows me, I don't really have that. You know, I never had that experience. And so I've always like very much longed for that experience of, I don't know, fulfilling my childhood wish of having a sister, you know, big sister or little sister. So, so after she kind of, you know, went from, oh no, I don't want to do the medicine, I just want to be there for you and support you. She ended up doing it anyway, which was fine, and I was okay with that. But up until the point where, so we did like a microdose, and I told her, you know, I told her first of all that I didn't want to do a microdose, I wanted to macrodose. And so she basically ended up splitting what was supposed to be my dose that I was paying her for. But she's like, no, don't pay me, don't pay me. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, that's really sweet. Okay, cool. So, yeah, so it ended up splitting. I was supposed to be doing 3 grams. Like that was what I wanted to do, just myself. Because again, treating anxiety and depression, you like microdosing isn't really going to have the same impact on you. Now, I mean, like later on you can, you know, microdose. And obviously, like when I'm saying this, I'm just going based on research that I found. And so there may be other research that points into other ways of doing it. But my understanding of the research was that, you know, microdosing is like a way of maintaining the balance, but macrodosing is like what really kind of, you know, hits hard. So, yeah, so I end up doing, I think it was like 0.5 grams, like the first day. And really it was only supposed to be 1 day that we were going to be doing it, but ended up being 2 days. So the first day, 0.5 grams, you know, I felt giddy, I felt giggly, and I felt more high than I wanted to feel, but still not in a way where I felt like I didn't have control, right? I wasn't like how some people, even when they get drunk or something like that, and they just don't have any control and they don't understand what they're doing. It wasn't like that. And so I wasn't really a fan of that, but at the same time, it was nice to feel relaxed because I could feel how much tension I was actually carrying on a daily basis once my body felt relaxed. And yeah, so I felt good. I felt, you know, just calm, I guess, like calm. And I was laughing, which was great because when you have depression, like you don't laugh much. It takes a lot to get you to laugh. And my particular type of depression symptoms are more of like a numbness than sadness, but there was still a sadness, but it was just more like numb. I think they call it anhedonia, where you don't get the same pleasure out of experiences that you normally do. And so so that day it was interesting. She was laughing, I was laughing, you know, that was fine. But then she got like super chatty. And I realized that I don't like that. When I'm trying to have a breakthrough experience, I don't want to be sitting there listening to someone's problems. And so the reason why I'm re-recording that episode of the follow-up of what happened after is because I was still friends with her, so I didn't want her to feel bad. I didn't want her to feel, you know, guilty of like, oh, I kind of like, you know, changed. I altered the quality of experience that she had, but because we're not friends anymore, I don't feel the need to like protect her feelings. And that's something also I've had to get out of doing when it comes to friendships, is, you know, being so careful with other people's feelings that I sort of ignore my own. And, or I used to ignore my own. I want to put that past tense because I have stopped doing that. So yeah, I just decided that I didn't like that experience, because it negated the purpose, which was my intention to heal myself. And when you are under that influence, like your brain is very neuroplastic. And so like a lot of programming can be done during that time. And she was just like blabbing on and on about like this person was blocking her and that person was blocking her. And she realized that she needed to spend more time with her kids and da 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 da. And it was just like this whole thing of just like, I just want to feel good and I just want to be concerned with my own concerns right now. And while I'm experiencing this medicine, it's not a time for me to sit and just shoot the shit with you about your epiphanies. Like I need to be focused on my own epiphanies. And so I was trying to join her in her experience, which took away completely from mine. And so I was a bit annoyed. I'm not gonna lie. I was really annoyed. And that was something that I didn't say before in the first video that I recorded about it, because they're just like, oh, I was like so happy for her. And which I was glad that she was able to have these, you know, revelations and these breakthroughs. But at the same time, that wasn't what I needed to be doing at that moment in time in my life, at that chapter in my life. I needed to be focused on my own healing and not just like, you know, joining her in her little like La La Land, whatever, epiphanies. And I don't mind to do that later, but you know, when you're dealing with something that has an urgency around it, and to me, feeling like shit on a regular basis definitely has urgency behind it, you know? And yeah, I wanted to feel good again. And that was definitely taking away from my experience. So I just want to like throw that out there to people, because I know everybody does something differently. They're like, oh yeah, like let's just go and do shrooms and like, you know, hang out. And if that's what you want to do, I mean, to each his own. But I just don't want to be part of that. It's not something that I want to do. So the second day, I think was like, oh yeah, it wasn't even that much. So it's because we ended up splitting 3 grams. So I got to do a whole gram. And when you are very closely associated with your mind and your body and time, and you're very analytical, I'm a very analytical person. And I will say that being an analytical person is one of my superpowers. But when you're dealing with something like depression and anxiety, it definitely can have its downfalls. And for me, it definitely did. And so, yeah, the next day, she was even more chatty. She was just like, da, 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 like her mouth was just going like a mile a minute. And it was annoying. I'm not gonna lie. It was really very fucking annoying to me. Like I just was like, oh my God. And I remember like looking at her at one point and she's like, hey, and I figured it out after the fact, like who she was talking to. I'm like, who the fuck is she talking to? But she was, I guess, talking to her spirit guides is what and I think she thought she was talking to the mushrooms, but they showed her a lot of insights and she was, you know, in a manifestation mode. And I thought, you know what, that's great. That's wonderful. I'm here to fucking heal. And they're like, gosh, you guys, I could literally unpack this forever and I'll do it in the book. So I won't do it here. But she's like super, like mouth, just literally going like that, like that, like that. And I'm like sitting down, and my guides at that time were trying to communicate something to me. And I was like, they were saying like, look, look, look. And I'm going like, what are you showing me? And I could see like very faint, like imagery of like little, I don't know, things like bouncing up and down, and like colors, you know, underneath their feet of like how they were hopping. And I'm like, okay, well, that's pretty, but okay, but what do you want me to see? Like, you just want me to see colors? Like, can I have a breakthrough here? And so anyway, in the beginning, I'll back up a little bit. Sorry, because again, you guys, I told you I'm Southern. I can't tell a linear story to save my life. I apologize. So, so we're sitting on the floor, and we're just kind of like hanging out, and she's like having all of these like, you know, epiphanies, and she's talking, and I am just like laughing, and she's like, why are you laughing? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm just laughing. And so she's laughing. And then my laughter turned to tears, and I started crying. And before I even realized I was crying, she realized I was crying because she was looking at me. And she's like, why are you crying? And I'm like, really? Like, I'm crying? Like, I don't know, because like my brain was like going from like different emotions. And I'm just like, oh, I am, you know, I didn't realize I was, but I was crying. And then she like gives me, she's like, oh, it's okay. She's like, you know, your mom did the best that she could. Like, you don't have to be mad at her anymore. You can let it go. And I'm like, what the fuck is she talking about? Like, that isn't like, I'm not even crying over that. I don't even know why I'm crying, but I know that I'm not crying over that. But she wouldn't shut the fuck up long enough for me to be able to figure out what was trying to be shown to me in that time. And so, you know, again, like when we were friends, like, or when I was her friend, I didn't realize, well, not that I didn't realize. When I was her friend, I didn't want to feel bad in my testimonial of my experience. So I was just like, yeah, it was interesting, da, da, da. And you know, as soon as I say interesting, and I mean something really deep and profound, and other times it's a way of me like trying to like not be judgmental. And so I was more focused on not being judgmental than I was really being honest about my experience. And so anyway, so after that, after like I stopped crying, and she's like here, and just like dabbing my face, I really believe that she was doing it out of a genuine, sincere place, because in that moment, in those moments where she was on the medicine, she was very sensitive, and she was very compassionate. She was just not inaccurate in what she was guessing. She wasn't holding space for me to actually go like, I don't know what this is. Like, I'm trying to figure it out, but she wouldn't shut up long enough. And I was too, even though 1 gram wasn't a lot, I was too like limp, like to be able to get annoyed. Like, even though I was annoyed, but like to vocalize how annoyed I was, because there was something about when you're in that really like relaxed state, almost like you've had like maybe a muscle relaxant or just a really amazing massage. It's like your body feels too limp to actually be like, can you please shut the fuck up so I can like have my experience? You know what I mean? Because like once I got into that, like I felt like it would be too hard to go back into my kind of at least the physical piece that I was feeling. So then she gets up, she's like walking over to the other side of the room. She's da 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 da, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm not fucking around anymore. Da 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 da. Like she's like going off on like some tangent because she's like realizing how she's going to manifest all of her goals, which is fantastic for her. But I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't go within, and it was just very distracting. And I said to myself, I was like, oh my God, like, I just wish I could just do this. I wish I could just have the experience that I came here to have. And so she's like, Nazar, she's like, I feel like I'm waiting for you. I'm over here waiting for you. Are you coming with me? Are you coming with me? And I'm like, stop. Like, I just put my hands up, and I was just like stop. Because I'm like, there's something a download that's trying to come through, and I can't pay attention to it because she won't shut the fuck up. And so I just was like this, and then I was just like, just shut up. Like, I want to hear what the messaging is that I'm trying to get. And so she kind of like notices, and she's like, oh, okay. She's like, all right, okay, I'm gonna go over here, and I'm gonna write for a while. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go write. You know, you're good. Like, I'm not like, you know, leaving you alone. I'm like, not like, just, but I didn't want to talk because I wanted to hear, and I couldn't hear because telepathically, like, something was trying to come through, which I later realized, which you'll see in an upcoming episode. Not the very next episode, but in an upcoming episode. I'm trying to remember where I share it. I'm not sure. I still have to number and like label these, you guys. So yeah, that's just kind of like where I am right now. But so I ended up going into a very, you know, deep, intense like meditation to do like a healing on myself, on my body, because there's like been different things that I've battled, like well, I guess not really different things, but there's been things I've been battling that, you know, I'm working on healing. And so I was able to at least go into that space and go into very deep meditation for hours. And yeah, we spent, you know, hours out of the day, you know, like meditating. And then at one point she's like, hey, do you want to come up over here with me? Like, she's like, I'm flying. Do you want to come with me? And I'm like, sure, whatever, you know. So I go up to the couch, and like we like hold hands, and I guess like I thought I was gonna like join her and wherever she was just like transporting to or something. I didn't fucking go anywhere, but apparently she's like flying through rainbows and shit. So that's good for her. I'm glad that she did get to have that experience. It would have been nice if I could have had my experience, but so when you see in an upcoming episode of you know, how I finally get to experience the medicine on my terms in alignment with my intention, then you'll see like the difference. And yeah, so I just said if I did it with her again, and we had plans to do it again the next month. But I'll maybe go into this in the book. I don't really feel like going into it now, but yeah, she wasn't someone I could trust. So let me rephrase that. She's not someone that I should have trusted. And I put my trust in her, knowing that it really wasn't a good idea for me to trust her. I mean, maybe now, like maybe she's had some type of like revelation or epiphany. So I don't like to keep people rooted in the past. I like to kind of hold some sense of energetic space for them to show up differently. But I will say though, with the mushrooms is that, you know, with anything really that you do, whether your breakthrough moment comes from, you know, doing mushrooms or ayahuasca or going to therapy or getting a life coach or going to a Tony Robbins convention or an Eckhart Tolle retreat, wherever it is like that you have that breakthrough moment, it means absolutely nothing if you don't do anything with it outside of that experience. And so I've really had to work to create a lifestyle that maintains that level of heightened awareness and healing for me, because we get to heal many times in our lifetime. And yeah, so yeah, I think I can maybe officially delete the initial like kind of like bullshit video diary entry of that experience, where I was just like, yeah, it was interesting, and you know, it was kind of jolly, and honestly, like I was a little jealous, like, and it's funny because I'm not a jealous person, like when it comes to like relationships or whatever, but I was, in the sense that she was getting to have an experience that she was saying that she was going to be there for me to have. And then she kind of like had it and just talked over my experience. And I don't say that to make myself a victim. I just say that as like an accountability of like, yeah, like I let someone else come into my space of healing without, like, knowing that they didn't really have the emotional capacity to show up for me. That's probably the best way of putting it. She just didn't have the emotional capacity to fully show up for me. As a person and as a friend, she didn't have that emotional capacity. And at least at that time, she didn't have the emotional capacity to stand in alignment with what she was, her words of what she was saying. Oh yes, I want to be there for you. Like, I'm fine. Like, I don't need anything. But she, you know, has a lot of her own issues. And then later on, I'll go into why she was not meant to walk through with me as the second psychedelic version. But it was just, it was sad. Like, I won't lie, it was sad. It was pretty devastating, actually, on a lot of levels. But something in me intuitively knew, because I was able to kind of move past it fairly quickly. But yeah, there's signs, like, when you know people really aren't there for you, but they want to believe that they have the emotional capacity to do that, but they don't really. Yeah, it was interesting. So I think I'm gonna round up there for now, but that was basically, I would not call that like the psychedelic virgin cherry pop right there for me. Definitely not. It was like a little tiny, like, like mushroom head, like, oh, is it in? Okay, no, this doesn't count. So, yeah, I don't think I lost much of anything in that moment. I didn't even like, I don't know. I will say that I did have a very cool meditative experience. More so the second day than the first day after she stopped talking. But I didn't feel any different. I just, but I was doing some healing, and she said she could see like some lights, because she was really good at that, about like seeing like auras and energy and things like that. But she said she could see like over me like a pink and magenta light, and she's like, oh, Naz, like, she's healing, like, oh, she's trying so hard. And I was, you guys, I was trying so fucking hard to get my healing. And but yeah, I realized that I think for me, I needed to go it alone. And that's okay. And I feel good about that. And yeah, so I'm gonna end right there for right now. But yeah, it was a really interesting experience. It's part of my story. It's going in the book. I haven't written about that experience yet, and maybe that's the next one I'm going to write about, because I do have to write about that, like, pseudo sisterhood thing that I wanted to be there but wasn't. And I'm so glad I'm not the one editing this book. It would take me, I think it would take me longer to edit the book than it is going to take me to actually write the book. So yeah, I'm excited. If you guys have any questions, comments, anything, please leave those in the chat. And I will have people on at some point who, you know, want to talk about their first time. And particularly, the guests I'm looking for, outside of professionals, because I definitely want to talk with professionals who are into psychedelic assisted psychotherapy, and you know, I've just been doing the research for quite some time. I definitely want to bring those people in and get that feedback. But I also want to talk to people who, you know, like me, you know, they tried this different thing or that different thing, or, you know, all these different, you know, forms of healing that either did work or didn't work, or, you know, I'm just curious to know all of the different stories that people have around it, so that they can share about their first time. So anyway, so that was kind of my first time, but it didn't count. My didn't count first time. So anyway, I will leave you guys with that for right now. And until next time, as always, stay inspired.